Hey guys, welcome to Season 1, Episode 3 of MDK Production School. My name's Morgan, and today we're going to be looking at all of the settings that we can actually tweak inside of a sampler. Okay, so go ahead and click on your kick to bring up the channel settings for it. We're going to start at the very top here by explaining this stuff. Keep in mind that these first two knobs are also directly linked to these two knobs right here. So if you change these guys, these ones are going to change. So if you look closely, you can see that leftmost knob moving as I tweak this knob. Okay, first things first. This is your pan knob, which, to kind of put it in layman's terms, means that you move the sound from left to right. If I have it panned all the way left and I press play, you can hear that the kick is now only coming out the left side. Same thing if I go to the right, the kick now just comes out the right side. Let's go ahead and reset that. The quickest way to do this is to either hold down Alt on your keyboard and click on it, or you can simply right click and press reset. Okay, so the next knob is pretty self-explanatory. It's the volume knob. If you turn it up, it gets louder. If you turn it down, it gets quieter. For now, let's leave it at about 60%. The next knob is the pitch knob, and this one's pretty fun to play with. It can be used in a lot of different situations. If you turn it up, your sample will go up in pitch, and it'll sound like this. And if you turn it down, your kick goes down in pitch. If you don't understand this next part, don't worry too much about it. This box right here shows the range that this knob is allowed to control. This 2 represents 2 semitones. So the neat thing is that you can actually change this value. So if we want, we can do something extreme, like set it to 24 semitones, which is 2 octaves. So now if I turn it all the way up, it gets pretty crazy high in pitch. And if I turn it all the way down, it's really low and unrecognizable. This next box right here, where it says FX, is how we actually route things to the mixer. So we're not going to focus on this too much, but if you double click on it, it brings up your mixer and it highlights insert number 1. This shows that whichever sampler you just clicked on is routed to insert number 1. Just to quickly sum up what that means, it means that we have put the kick on this insert right here, and then over in this space, we can add in all sorts of cool effects like delays and reverbs and stuff. We're going to focus on that in 1 or 2 more lessons, but for now, let's just close the mixer. Don't forget to keep in mind that if you ever don't know what anything is, if you mouse over something and go into the top left corner of FL Studio, where this bar is right here, it'll show you some text about what that object actually is. So as I go over all the samplers and stuff, you can see it tells you that it's snare and it's a sampler. If I mouse over some of these buttons inside of the sampler, it also tells you what they are. The next section underneath that, you pretty much always just want to leave as is when you bring up a sampler, but there's one button that's pretty important sometimes, which is this guy right here. If you mouse over it, you'll notice it says stream sample from hard disk when possible. So what this means is that instead of loading GrooveKick 21 into your RAM, it just tries to stream it and play it back right off your hard drive. If you're using a pretty slow or an older hard drive, you might not want to use that. The next section you want to focus on is the time stretching section, which is a very powerful tool. So the first knob is the pitch knob, and what this does is it changes the actual pitch of your sample, but it doesn't make it any shorter or longer. So if you turn it up quite a ways, and then you play back the sample, you can hear that the sample is still the same duration that it was, but it's higher in pitch. This is different than using the pitch knob, because the pitch knob will actually change both the length and the pitch of the sample. The next knob, which is labeled mull, is basically the exact opposite of the pitch knob. It changes the length of the sample without changing the pitch. So once again, it's unique from the pitch knob. So if we turn the mull knob up quite a ways, it makes the sample a lot longer, but it still plays at the same pitch. If we turn it down, it makes it much shorter, and once again, it still plays at the same pitch. The third knob, which is the time stretch knob, is basically an extreme version of the mull knob. If we turn it up, it extends the length of the sample a lot. Time stretching is a really powerful tool, and it can be used to make some really unique sounds. Inside of this pre-computed effects section, there's a couple things that you want to pay attention to. One very handy tool is the reverse feature, which if you click on it, simply just flips your sample around, and now if we play it, it plays it from the end to the beginning. This is also a great feature to keep in mind because it can give you some really good variation in your music. Lastly, let's take a look at these knobs at the bottom of the sampler. Watch what happens to the waveform at the very bottom as we tweak these knobs. If you change the in knob, it fades the sound in and makes the start quieter. Likewise, if you tweak the out knob, it fades the sound out and makes the tail quieter. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure what the pogo knob does, but it does have a pretty unique effect sometimes. Watch what happens when we turn it. If you look in the FL Studio help manual, it'll probably give you a pretty detailed explanation of exactly what's happening. The next knob is the crossfade loop knob. If we turn it, it sets these red markers, which are actually loop markers. If we go to the looping section up here, and we notice that use loop points is turned on, it means that when you play the sample, it will start it at this point, and it'll end at this point, and it'll continuously loop that section. With these settings, it'll sound like this. The final knob in this section is the trim knob, which is the rightmost knob in this row. When you turn this knob up, it removes silence from the beginning and the end of the audio. Watch what happens to this end section right here, as we can clearly see that there's no audio here. As we turn it up, it simply cuts off the end of that sample. Okay, so we've covered the majority of the stuff on this front panel. Let's go into the INS tab, which is the Instrument Properties tab. Hey guys, thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Feel free to leave a comment below and let me know what you thought. Don't forget, if you're interested in trying FL Studio for yourself, there's a link in the description to save 10% off all ImageLine software. When you're ready, click that next button, and I'll see you in the next lesson.